Good afternoon. I'm here to give my presentation talking about the communication processes that we've learned about in class and actually linking those to like a book or a movie that we like is how I understood the assignment. So we're going to get started before I formally get into what I want to talk about. Much of the things that I've used from as far as the communication pieces that we learned about in the course is from the textbook. Wrong way. Collaboration, consultation, and teamwork, and the book, which I'll get into in great detail, that I chose was one that I've read several years ago. Was really helpful for me. Doesn't really have to do with teaching, but it can. And so hopefully I'm going to link those things together. It is actually kind of a well-known book. I believe it was a New York Times bestseller. So I'll just show you right now. It's called The Obstacle is the Way, written by Ryan Halliday. That's probably going to be backwards. But it is an outstanding book, one of the better kind of self-help books. I don't really like those usually, but it's probably the best one that I've read. Not that I've read a ton, but so we'll get into it. The first thing I really want to talk about is the textbook and kind of the introduction to communication, or the chapter on communication that we studied. It was mainly chapter 4 is kind of where they specifically focused on communication, although as you know, communication is just an enormous part of working collaboratively, and our roles as a special education teacher. So I'm going to try to read, I have some things written down. So forgive me that I'm not looking at the camera the entire time, but I kind of felt that these were the things that I thought were important from the textbook, and I want to make sure I include those. And so I'm going to get right into it just for the sake of time. I really wanted to start. There was a statement that I found in chapter 4 that really made me think. It said something to the effect that studies show that people, us, we are communicating in some form for about 70% of our waking hours. So as just normal people going through our day, regardless of occupation or familiar, our family situations, we are constantly in communication with other people. So 70% of our time that we're communicating is a big chunk. So communication is important. The author said that communication is one of the great achievements of mankind, and I tend to agree. It's a vital component of human relationships in general, and it's really the foundation for working collaboratively and being a cooperative co-worker or colleague, I guess. It's not simply delivering a message. Communication involves talking, listening, managing your interpersonal conflicts, and addressing concerns together. Successful communication, according to the authors anyway, is, the components are understanding, trust, autonomy, and being flexible. And it also noted that good communicators, hopefully, effective communicators withhold judgment and minimize efforts to control the path of communication. Noted, while problems and conflicts in life obviously are unavoidable, it's part of life. If you have good, solid communication skills, that usually helps you resolve any of those issues easier and more effective. Whereas ineffective communication kind of creates a void. It breeds misunderstanding and distrust. And of course, trust, commitment, and effective interactions are critical when we are working with others and being a collaborative teacher. Is the role of a special education teacher. We are constantly communicating with colleagues, parents, students, admin, anything like that. And again, the author said communication is like a very human achievement. It's almost mandatory that we all have some form of communication. And when I wrote my summary for chapter 4, I put this tidbit in here. I don't know if you remembered or not. I don't have a source for it. It's just something that I heard. But it was something to the effect that communication is really what allowed humans to conquer beasts and other variations of pre-man species, cavemen or whatever. And I don't know if that's true or false. Again, I don't have a source for that, but it makes sense that if we're able to use language and speech and communicate with other human beings, that's a definite advantage as far as if you think back to when people really had to struggle just to survive, find food, hunt, gather, things like that. Communication was really the turning point for human beings, as we think of it as a big, long concept, I guess. So the communication methods that they mention, and again, specifically chapter 4, face-to-face, obviously, they call that the standard, and it is without a doubt the most effective method of communicating with other people. There's nuance, there's body language, there's nonverbal communication, all those things that sometimes get lost when we're using other methods of communication. So face-to-face, I talked about email and phone. I know during the COVID pandemic, we started using Zoom for like virtual meetings, and those still remain pretty popular, but you can't beat face-to-face. And then, the one thing they talked about in that chapter 2 was like considering who you're talking to, differences in people. Talks about ethnic or gender differences, and it's interesting, that males and females vary in kind of the amount of time that they listen versus talking in a conversation, interrupting, like physically aligned, how we stand in relation to the other person as we're having a conversation, being indirect, using silence, all those things. So that's kind of what I'm going to say as far as the textbook goes, and we'll come back to that. But I want to now kind of formally introduce the book. One of my favorite books, and really helped me in my life and in my career. And again, it was a bestseller, and it's called The Obstacle is the Way. I actually heard about it on a podcast. That's how I heard about the book. And the author, Ryan Holiday, is if you Google him, very well-known kind of like motivational speaker. It says that this book and Ryan have worked directly with like Super Bowl winning teams such as the New England Patriots, several college football teams. I saw him working with Nick Saban in Alabama, which at the time was like the premier college football program in the country. Nick Saban's actually referenced in the book. The San Antonio Spurs, the year they won the NBA title, Ryan worked with them. Olympic gold medalists, senators, military leaders. He's advised, major companies like Google, Taser, Complex, multi-platinum musician. So this guy, again, if you are interested, at the end you can Google him. He's seems like quite a person. I discovered this book a while ago. Like I said, I heard a podcast, and at the time I was an administrator. I don't remember if I was an athletic director or an assistant principal. But the concepts that I learned in this book really helped me. As an administrator, I got kind of worn down, admittedly. just I don't do well with constant negative energy, and I believe you were a superintendent, so you probably feel this even to a higher degree. But I was just really feeling like I was starting to avoid things because I was just really sick of dealing with the same kids, the same parents, the same excuses, the same behaviors. And so this book kind of piqued my interest, and basically we'll get into this in more detail. His philosophy, the Stoicism philosophy, is developing basically the ability to look at problems or things that we are scared of, and kind of facing those and looking at those as opportunities to grow and to improve. A lot of like overcoming fears and being able to achieve even if we feel that the situation is bleak. So it teaches readers how to transform challenges into opportunities by applying the principle of Stoicism, which is an ancient Greek and Roman philosophy. Rather than avoiding hardships, the Stoics teach us that adversity, it's inevitable. We're all going to face it at some time, and that the response to it really determines our success. So the central message in the book basically comes from a lot of it, if you were to read it, is about the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, and a lot of the teaching is kind of based upon a quote of his, or a saying that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. So basically, the obstacle contains opportunity for us to develop wisdom, courage, discipline, resilience, and our success depends on favorable circumstances and our mindset as far as what our actions will be from there. So real quick, I can't believe I'm already at 12 minutes. Stoicism is a philosophy that teaches people to focus on what they can control while accepting what they cannot. So a Stoic believes life includes hardship, external events cannot always be controlled, character matters more than the circumstance, happiness comes from virtue rather than possessions or status, and difficulties help people become stronger. So it really encourages calm thinking, wise decisions, and consistent action. So basically, he hits on some kind of famous Stoic philosophers. There's Marcus Aurelius. Real quick, he was a Roman emperor. He wrote his famous work is called Meditations. I've read that too. He believed leaders should remain calm, humble, and focused on doing what is right, regardless of the circumstance. Aesculapius, I think is how you say it, was another famous Stoic born into slavery, and he taught that freedom begins in your mind, that we can't really choose what happens to us all the time, but we can choose how we respond. And then another Stoic that's referenced quite a bit is Seneca, who was a Roman statesman and writer. And his big pillars were kind of preparation, moderation, and learning from adversity. So he was a guy that kind of encouraged reflecting on challenges before they occur, so they're less overwhelming when they arise. So the basic, there's 3 disciplines that are talked about in the book, which is perception, action, and will. I planned on getting into those, but I'm already almost at 15 minutes. So really what I'm going to do, I think, is just kind of move forward to how I could relate these things taught in the book to communication. And communication as a teacher. So really, the lessons from this book can really be applied to teaching communication skills, even though that's really not what the book is about. But Stoicism in here really promotes emotional intelligence, active listening, self-awareness, and giving thoughtful responses. So, again, although it's not specifically about communication, the three disciplines, perception, action, and will, really do provide a good, framework for helping students and our coworkers become better communicators. So, for instance, one of the concepts in the book is that people should separate facts from your emotions to avoid making quick judgment. Okay. This is really applicable for communication. I know I talk to my students specifically about like active listening. So students can listen without interrupting, focus on understanding the speaker before responding, avoid making assumptions, ask clarifying questions, pay attention to nonverbal communication as well. So, I mean, like in the classroom, we could present kids with a disagreement between two people or classmates and really, have them discuss how changing their perception to the conversation helps them understand and hopefully resolve the conflict, that really have the kids identify the facts that they heard, the assumptions they made, the emotions they felt, and the information that they still needed. Another part that really is funny, I work with my kids on this a lot because I have some pretty high emotional behavior students, is emotional control, remaining calm during stressful situations. And this book talks quite a bit about that, that effective communicators manage their emotions instead of allowing their emotions to manage them. So teaching students to kind of pause before responding and flying off the handle, taking deep breaths, speaking respectfully, choosing appropriate words, and being aware of their own body language too. So we could kind of go on, and I will for a little bit more, but really all this can kind of be applied to everyday life for education professionals and for our students in special education. Like, one of the most important things that they talk about in here is focusing on what you can control as an individual or as a fifth grade student or whatever it is. So they give, things that we can't control, other people's opinions, whether someone agrees with us or not. And we can't control another person's emotions. But what we can control are things like their tone of voice, their word choice, preparation, respect, listening, for adults, being professional. That the mindset really reduces a lot of frustration during difficult conversations. And again, this really helped me professionally, especially as an administrator, dealing with irate parents or parents that only have one side of the story or parents that come in super hot into a meeting. Just being able to control my own emotions, remaining calm, and really thinking about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it was incredibly helpful. Okay, so, we can't always wait for these ideal conditions, but we can kind of learn these concepts to make things better for ourselves. And so last thing really, before I wrap it up, the one thing that this book kind of really drives home to is obstacles becoming learning opportunities, really. So, it did talk about education, like kids or students, things that we naturally fear, like public speaking, giving presentations, receiving criticism from teachers or administration, and having difficult conversations. Those are really, actually, as uncomfortable as they are, they're opportunities for growth. So, to kind of wrap it up, I could probably go on for hours, about this, but this book, I would recommend it to anyone in any line of work. Like I said, it really applied to me, especially as an administrator, but I've kind of taken that. I went back into the classroom. I've kind of taken these concepts with me. And really, the book teaches that communication challenges like misunderstandings, conflicts, criticisms, all our fears can really be reframed as opportunities to develop stronger communication skills. And again, it's like these stoic disciplines of perception, action, and will. Really, if we practice these things, we can become more confident, more thoughtful, and better communicators in every way. And so I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I can answer more questions via email. But thank you for your time. And again, check this out if you are interested in becoming better at dealing with conflict and really looking at the world as I can control certain things. I have no control. How am I going to respond to that? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed and have a great rest of your day. Bye.